Hello everyone, in this presentation I will introduce my proposal for the final research assignment in this course. My name is Jessie Maldonado and I belong to the field of applied linguistics. Specifically in this research project, I will conduct a corpus study to find the most common collocations in Australian spoken English. This is a brief overview of what I'm going to talk about. First, I will start with the introduction. I will proceed with a concise literature review. Then I will present the research questions, data, and methods. And finally, I will finish with some pedagogical implications. When it comes to language development, multiple studies have found that vocabulary is key for a student's understanding of the language. In the past, some teaching approaches failed to successfully support students' vocabulary learning because teachers used to teach large lists of words in isolation and with no context or samples of language. Current research has shown that people do not usually learn words in isolation, but in combination of words or chunks. Collocations are chunks of language and are key for language development. It greatly influences learners' interactions in the target language. However, language learners' knowledge of collocation is far behind than native speakers because they have fewer instant learning opportunities. This means that collocations are encountered more rarely and with long intervals between encounters, which make them difficult to learn and leave traces in their learners' minds. The objective of the study is to extract the most common collocation in spoken Australian English for pedagogical purposes. It is also relevant to mention that regarding the Australian context, thousands of international students arrive every year with the objective to learn English. For this, it is important to familiarize students with Australian English, which has its own unique characteristics. Snowden 2019 explains that there are three core components of vocabulary acquisition: input, memory, and incrementality. Input has to do with the fact that learners should be exposed to linguistic input, since language features are learned through input. Memory, it has to do with the fact that students need to remember previous unknown words, and incrementality it is because learners and native speakers learn words incrementality through interacting with the input. Additionally, even though developing native-like proficiency shouldn't be the end of teachers in the classroom, since each student has their own background and accent that is unique and should be acknowledged and respected, May 2018 explains that sometimes learners make combination of words that are not appropriate in the target language, and that knowledge of collocation is crucial to develop native-like written and spoken language. It also benefits beginner learners to produce language without having great vocabulary knowledge. Therefore, the objective of this study and its main question is to find out what are the most common collocations in Australian spoken English to draw on some pedagogical implications in the Australian context. The data for this current study comes from the ACE corpus, which is a corpus that was compiled to match with Australian data from 1986 to Standard American and British corpora, which are the Brown and Loeb, and those were compiled in the 1960s. The corpus tool that I will use is a Sketch Engine, and I will use it to extract word frequency lists of collocations. Finally, I will analyze what are the most common collocations in Australian spoken English, and I will talk about some pedagogical implications. To conclude this presentation, I will talk about some pedagogical implications that have been drawn by previous literature. Nesselhoff 2003 concludes that collocations should be learned explicitly, similarly to what Duran and Smith suggest, and they suggest that teachers should purposefully draw students' attention to collocations. Until 2018 expresses that teachers should raise students' awareness of the importance of learning collocations and of purposefully noticing patterns of words and how they appear in context. They give some suggestions for teachers, and the suggestions are to focus instructions on productive tasks, purposeful repetition, readings, and class activities that should be based on daily life interactions, so they imitate real life interactions. Thank you so much for your attention. This is the reference list.